Welcome to the Physician Wealth Med podcast. It's wealth medicine for doctors. If you're a doctor and you have no time, it looks like you found us just in time. This podcast is for all doctors who would like to work on their personal wealth, but do not have traditional hours to do so because they have no time. We're here to jump into topics that will help you address your wealth both inside and outside of your practice so that you can live the life of significance you're dreaming of. You'll hear from your peers, you'll hear from industry professionals, and your host and wealth advisor, me, Kevin Sullivan. This is your time. Now let's get started with today's podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Physician Wealth Med podcast. We like to say it's wealth medicine for doctors. So we're going to give you some wealth medicine here today with Dr. Vikram Raya here this morning. And I'm so glad that he decided to join us on this podcast today. You're not going to believe his message. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself, and then we'll just jump right into it. So welcome this morning. Appreciate it.
Hey, Kevin, I'm super pumped and excited to be on your podcast. I know you're on a mission to help physicians all over the country and all over the world, perhaps, really, up-level their financial IQ and create that financial freedom that they've been looking for. So it's an honor to be on the podcast. And a little bit about my story. Yeah. I'm a cardiologist, guys. I should be in a cath lab somewhere putting a stent in someone, but I ended up, long story short, I realized that even though I loved being a cardiologist, I wanted more. And so I started investing in my own education myself, figured out an aspect of wealth creation, mainly in real estate, started with single family homes, moved on to large multifamily homes. Now I run a real estate private equity firm called Viking Capital, where we have about $1 billion of acquisitions. On top of that, I had a passion to reverse disease, not manage it. And so I took my cardiology knowledge, got trained in functional medicine, and created a boutique concierge clinic where I was able to help patients get rid of their diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, and live their best life. And then finally, just in case that wasn't enough, I've been coached by some of the most, smartest people on the planet. People have poured into me, all these amazing mentors and experts and coaches, that I started helping others during the pandemic. And I had started helping doctors just with phone calls and, sort of people, hey, can I pick your brain kind of conversations? And hey, can I buy you coffee? And that led to me starting my coaching company, which is called Limitless MD, where we help doctors achieve time and financial freedom and live their best lives.
That is excellent. Tell us a little bit more about your journey and what kind of led you to that, and what's the why behind what you're doing?
The why, now that I'm looking back, I can connect the dots, as they say. But when I was looking forward, I was just like, I thought medicine when I got in, because that was my goal and my dream to be a doctor. And it was just like everything. I want to be a doctor. And once I got into internal medicine, I was like, all right, I want to be a cardiologist. See, 6 people in my family died of heart attacks, Kevin. And so I didn't take it lightly that, maybe this is the field I need to learn because I want to help others. And it's the number one thing that, takes us out in the world. Like there's a book called Outlive by Peter Attia, who's one of the top longevity experts in the world. And he says there's 4 horsemen of disease, 4 horsemen that are going to take all of us out. They'll kill us. And it's cardiovascular disease, it's cancer, it's neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and finally it's metabolic like diabetes and things. And so if the number one out of those 4 is cardiovascular, I thought, hey, I should figure this out. And so I studied cardiology. What I noticed was the people I looked up to, the people who were already practicing and already successful, they were stressed. And instead of just doing things for the love of medicine or the love of their patients, they were trying to economically engineer an outcome. They were like, hey, I need to see this many patients to get this financial return. And they were stressed, and they were in a rat race. And even though they drove the nice cars, they took the nice vacations, and their kids were in private school, they didn't seem financially free. They seemed like they were caught with what I call, people used to call them golden handcuffs. I call them Gucci handcuffs. I call them the Gucci
I like that
because they're not only are they caged, but they're bragging about the cage. They have name brand cages, Hermes, Gucci, Prada, right? They're in this kind of microcosm of this rich, successful doctor, but they really don't have much savings. If they stop working, their income gets cut off. They're not able to do the impact and charity that they really want to do. And when you ask them, are you really happy? Oftentimes the answer is no. They're not fulfilled, right? So in the end, the wealth that is the most important, the fulfillment wealth, is not there. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I'm like, hey, look, I want to practice medicine the way I want to. And so I was like, hey, let me go discover these wealth creation vehicles out there. Let me invest in my own financial education, and let me engineer a lifestyle to where I get to practice and it's for fun and not because I have to.
Right. That is a huge goal of this podcast, is to deliver content for doctors to do that very thing, so that they can see and build wealth inside the practice, but also outside, that will last for generations. And you talk about generational income on one of your other podcasts that I listened to about that is so important, to have something else other than what you're doing. One of the things that jumped off the page at me when I was first reading your bio is just, I love the way you said it's a bulletproof mindset for success. Can you talk a little bit about the mindset that doctors should have if they want to say, okay, there's got to be something more. I want to be driven to something more than just my practice. What kind of mindset does a doctor have to have?
Let me tell you a story. I have a person in my mentorship, orthopedic doctor, and this guy is in his, late 40s, about to turn 50, and he's an orthopedic doctor, and he reinvented himself. He realized, he was part of a private practice group. It got bought by private equity, and what he noticed was he got a little bit of cash out, but the screws started tightening, and his income started dropping after the transaction. And he realized that if he's just depending on being a orthopedic doctor, he may not be able to live the same lifestyle. And in fact, he has 4 kids. His wife also is an entrepreneur. So, he's the main breadwinner at that point. And so what he decided to do was he just decided to figure out, what does he want? Once he got the clarity, then it's about like, how can he get there? And part of it is he had to believe he can get there. And that's that bulletproof mindset we talk about, that, hey, I'm more than just a doctor. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a father. I'm a, I'm a financial engineer, if you will, and he started, creating multiple streams of income. He started, he dabbled into a little bit of real estate. He started getting into entrepreneurship. He started investing wisely with his financial team that he built. And with all that said, now I would say, and the term I like to use is non-clinical income. So he's able to essentially match his clinical income with non-clinical income. And now he's essentially financially free. And he gets to practice, but he doesn't have to.
Yes. Sounds like another doctor that we had, Dr. Tom Burns, was on the program here last year. Rich doctor. He called me down from Panama. Yeah. Are you good friends with him?
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. Because he was telling me his story and everything. We had him on the podcast, but he calls me down from Panama. He was doing some kind of a retreat down there and was so willing to come on the show. What do you say when doctors are facing burnout? We had like 2 podcasts last year that we focused on burnout 1, burnout 2, 2 different podcasts with 2 different doctors that we were interviewing. But what would you say to doctors that might be feeling a little bit burnt out about what they're doing, not happy, as you just said?
So there's sort of the mid-career slump that all doctors go through. It's basically, it happens like, they've been so delayed their gratification for so long. They finally get that first job. Boom, they went from earning $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 to finally earning a real paycheck, maybe $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And they're able to then, have a better quality of life. They're able to buy the house, the car, the trappings of success that they've been looking for all these years. They're hopefully well treated by their practice. And the thing is, as a physician, you knew your destiny every step of the way. So you knew that undergraduate led to med school. You knew that med school led to residency. You knew residency led to fellowship. You knew fellowship led to your first job. And we're used to like sort of keep up leveling every 2 to 3 years. What happens is when they get their first job, Kevin, they start, they go to mastery. It takes them 2, 3, 4 years to get really good at their job. And then what happens is they come to a sort of a wall, and the question is, what's next?
Yeah.
They don't know what's next. No one has shown them what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And then they look to the people in their practice and say, oh, no, you just do this for the next 30 years. And, as human beings, Kevin, we need to grow and we need to contribute. And if we're not doing that, then we lose that excitement, that fulfillment. And so that's number. And then the second thing is what happens, this term burnout is really nothing but people losing their autonomy. When you're being told what to do in most categories of your work, it's not fun. When you're also when the reimbursements keep getting cut and you're working the same number of hours, or you have to work more hours for the same money, that's not fun. And the final thing is if you don't see a pathway to keep expanding and becoming more of yourself, that's also not fun. And so, and the last one I would say is the documentation, right? Like most doctors, they work 60, 50, 60, 70 hours, but then they spend another 5 to 10 to 15 hours every week doing their charts or documentation or billing and stuff. And so all that administrative burden gets to them. And, if most doctors, they have their practice, if they own it, thank God. If they do, if not, they're just an employee. And then they get their money from whatever the mutual funds that they've invested in. And that's it. And maybe they own their home. There's not much there. And then they get beat up on taxes. The number one expense on physicians is the taxes they pay. They lose almost 50% of their income on taxes. So no one's going to feel sorry for a doctor, but when you look at all of those factors coming in, they're in this rat race that they're never able to get out of. For some, that leads to burnout. For others, it leads to, pivoting out of the medicine. For others, it leads to, sort of like this, I have to just suffer and bear it for the next 10, 20 years.
Right. I mean, I know in one of your podcasts, you said doctors are wired for safety. I like that, the way you said that, because they have to, right? But if they take a chance, if they look up, we're so busy working in the practice that sometimes we don't look up and look around. Maybe you don't even know what your practice is worth as far as a valuation point of view. But that is a key component to anybody's wealth, is the value of your practice, especially if you're a doctor that owns your own practice. But what would you say to doctors who think, okay, this all sounds good, but I'm wired for safety. I'm trapped in my safety mindset?
I would invite them to say, hey, what made you successful as a physician is not what's going to make you successful as an entrepreneur. See, as a physician, as a doctor, we must, if you make a mistake with a patient, it could be catastrophic.
Right.
And what's looked down upon during your physician journey or your doctor journey is actually celebrated in the entrepreneurial journey. Mistakes are really experiments in entrepreneurship, and that's what allows you to become the next level success. Elon Musk is expecting his rockets to blow up the moment they launch, every single one of them. And if they don't, he's excited. And then if they blow up, he learns a ton of information on how to make the next rocket better. So we have to park the physician mindset at the door as we put on the entrepreneur hat, or the financial expansion hat. And so in my mindset, I think physicians need to become doctorpreneurs. They need to take back control. They need to look at the three things that potentially three investment options of wealth creation. And I think those are really, number one is scaling their practice. If they own their practice or they have a capability to be a partner in their practice, let's scale that up to multiple millions and make it an asset that they can eventually sell or exit from. Number two, it's really doing some kind of wealth creation vehicle, whether it's real estate or maybe buying a business, right? That doesn't have to be in medicine. They can just, there's a huge shift in all these baby boomers who are retiring and their kids don't want to take over their businesses. And so instead of them starting a new business, they can easily take over an existing business or get into real estate, which I coach on as well. So that's the second bucket, which is either business or real estate, which is a great wealth creation vehicle. And the final one is some type of consulting, entrepreneurship kind of thing, side hustle, where they use their knowledge to create some kind of income or advisory role. And so these three buckets are available for these doctors to create another 7-figure income. They can essentially not only exceed, but replace their income with these strategies.
It's in such need. We always say, going back to your second point, the quickest way to save money is to save money in taxes. Quickest way to wealth is to pay less in taxes. And what better way than to take advantage of those real estate benefits that you get when you start purchasing real estate and really knowing and diving into what that world looks like. So that's a huge plus for doctors.
Yeah, the lowest hanging fruit, Kevin, if I could just give a piece of advice to the audience is this, guys. Look, let's say you make about $500,000 a year. You live in California. You pay 50% of that in taxes. If you bought a short-term rental, Airbnb, VRBO kind of thing, there's a tax loophole that allows you to essentially take the bonus depreciation off that. So let's say you buy a $500,000 property. You can probably take up to 50% of that. So it's $250,000 off your active income, which is hard to do as a physician. And I'm sure you advise on other wealth tax optimization strategies. Perhaps it's investing in other things such as oil and gas or other things like that. But the key is really, figuring out how to get off being a W-2, see if you can become a K-1, 1099, and all these things, and start being able to chip away at this tax burden. And many of my clients don't pay taxes really, or they in a legal way. I mean, they're able to offset their income with other strategies.
And that's powerful when you can do that. If you're going to have to spend the money anyways in taxes, why not look at these type of options out there so that at least you can gain something, so that you can control where that's going, which is true. I like your point number 3 about entrepreneurship, using your expertise, maybe with telemedicine or starting your own podcast or doing something that you can monetize your own skills and abilities. We have a 45-foot bus that I drive between my offices from Maine, New York, and down to South Carolina. It's like a big triangle. And when we need something, there's an app on my phone that goes right to a live technician 24/7, and I just think about how I've used that in my travels. And you can use that as your own type of thing in the medical field to make money off your expertise is another way to have another stream of passive income, which is huge.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the telemedicine thing. So we have some people we've mentored who've launched a telemedicine company. And what they're doing is they're helping doctors get 51 licenses. So essentially they're able to be practicing in all the states. And then they get contracts from companies who need doctors who have all these licenses. And they're able to essentially get almost 2 times the income they would normally get on a traditional, job. And so now you're using geographic and state arbitrage to get more income for the same amount of time.
One of the things that you have out is a book called The Perfect Week Formula. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have one right here.
He's got one right here.
And if any of your listeners would like a free copy of it, they can reach out to us, or they can go to our website, which is vikramraya.com, VIKRAMRAYA.com. There's an option to try to get the free book that we can help people get. And so this book here, I wrote it because I really wanted to give people a playbook for that time and financial freedom. And I think if any physician's interested, it allows them to really figure out how to buy back their time, how to do a time audit, how to learn hey, these are things that I need to get off my plate. I need to delegate. I need to use AI. I need to get someone on my team to do it, my MA, my NP or something. We also talk about how to scale practices. And so, most people are solo practitioners, and the goal is, hey, how do we grow the practice? How do we grow the revenue? How do we get more leads in? Right. And it's interesting, right? Once people know this formula, they can apply not just to their medical practice, they can apply to any business. So it's these timeless principles that are helpful. And it's really physicians learning to go beyond their comfort zone and into their zone of genius, into where they can really expand their capabilities. I have this concept in the book called Sprint the Marathon. So, Kevin, you and I have come across some remarkable individuals who've been successful, not for a couple of weeks, not for a couple of months, but for decades.
Yes.
And how do they do that, right? And it's because they figured out not only do they have to go fast like a sprinter, or they have to go consistent like a marathoner, but there are people who are like those Kenyans who can run a marathon in 2 hours or less. And so they've learned to sprint the marathon, and they've learned to have morning routines. They've learned to have clear goals in mind. They go to sleep on time. they eat healthy, they have a lot of energy, they get coached and mentored, they read the good books, and they create professional teams. Like they have a CPA, they have an accountant, they have a financial advisor, and when you have all of this, you're almost unstoppable.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly on that. It's the mindset. You can just determine in your mind, this is where I want to go. These are the people that I want to read. These are the people I want to hang out with because they think like-minded, just like me, that kind of thing. And that will propel you farther than you can probably ever estimate when you start to do that. I often say with every step of faith, the scenery changes. You can't get to level 2 unless you get to level 1. So with every step that you take, you're going to see the scenery change as you embark on this kind of a journey. Tell me about your coaching and how that relates to your book and maybe working with doctors with your coaching program.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. But I want to ask you a question first. What do you think is the number one roadblock or challenge that the doctors that you work with face?
I think it's just time to get to what they want to do. They know that they want to do something, but they just can't release themselves. So in our concierge service format, we don't care if a doctor reaches out to us at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. They will get a response because we understand their schedule. We understand their timing. So we just try to bring the content to them to say, hey, look, if you got 20 minutes, just look up and we can help you look up and we can give you resources like that.
Sure. So the first things first are, and the book and the coaching program do this. You're right. Most doctors don't have time freedom. They're very time poor. And there's several ways I can do that. They're time poor and they're weak. And maybe they're at the age where there's not that many years left because they waited so long to figure out what's next, right? So my goal is to fast track and accelerate their time freedom. And the way I do that, number one, is I do a time audit. I figure out exactly how you spend your time in a typical week, for example. And and the way to do a time audit, you guys can do it right now. It's on your iPhone or Android. Every 30 minutes, have a little alarm that goes off, and you should write down on a piece of paper, hey, what are you doing during that time? And then at the end of the day or the end of a couple of days, if it's good use of your time, highlight it in green. If it's neutral, yellow. And if it's a stupid use of your time or not the ideal use of your time, even if it's quote important, but someone else could do it, maybe make it red. And now you have a color-coded graph or chart of your life. And the goal is to get rid of the yellows and reds. And the way you do that is the formula A2D2. So if it's a good use of your time, it's highlighting green. If it's like a neutral use, like you could do something better with it, but it's reasonable use of your time, yellow. And if it's mowing the lawn, unless you really love it, or something someone else could do, maybe it's red. And so now when you look at your 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, or however many days you did, you have a color coding of what's important, what's the good stuff you're doing, what are the things that need to come off your plate. And then you apply my formula, the A2D2 formula. A2D2 stands for automate, AI, delegate, and delete. And so you go through, hey, what can be automated? If you check an email 5 times a day, perhaps you just check it once a day, and the emails that come in can be pre-sorted into folders. Right now, there's so much technology. All the email servers do this. It's not hard. Or perhaps you have a virtual assistant helping you. Number 2, it's AI, right? I use ChatGPT or some other AIs 5 times a day at least. And it really cuts down on numerous things. And then for doctors who are practicing, Open Evidence is essentially replacing UpToDate, which is a software that helps you with your diagnostic plans. You should use ChatGPT, for everything from contract negotiations to marketing to figuring out, which employees need to get a raise, which ones need to be let go. I mean, it's insane what you can do with ChatGPT. So, and there's another AI that I don't think many of your listeners know, but this one creates presentations, it creates social media, creates websites, and it's called gamma.app, GAMMA.app. It's phenomenal. So
nice.
I want to just, so A2D2, it's automate, AI, delegate. So on that color-coded sheet, if it's yellow or red, see if you can delete it first. And if you can delete it, then delegate it to someone else whose, per hour rate is less than yours. Let's say you're like $100 hour kind of guy or girl, and it's a $20 task. Maybe that's not meant for you to do. Someone else should do it on your team or in your home. And so what I've done is really I help these doctors get executive assistants or virtual assistants. I help them get front desks and MAs and EAs and NPs and PAs. And what happens is they become really good at a few things, and it's their zone of genius. And what happens also, I look at something called time to income ratio. So if the best use of your time is going to market to other doctors and doing like X procedure, that's all you should be doing during your day. Everything else should be off your plate. What happens is your income skyrockets, your free time improves, and you enjoy you enjoy things because you're doing things in your zone of genius.
Yeah, bringing the joy back to the practice. It's almost like setting you free to what you wanted to get into the profession to begin with. But then all the baggage came with it. There's a little thing that I have. It's right under my desk here because I'm charging it right now. It's called Plaid. Have you ever seen that? It's an AI voice recorder that will take your dictation and it will mind map it. It'll give you a transcript of it. It'll give you a summary. So if you need to talk your notes in, it spits it all out. It's just amazing what AI does nowadays. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I tease my doctors. I'm like, if you guys are still touching the keyboard during the middle of the day for your notes, shame on you. Like you need to either get a virtual scribe or an in-person scribe or somebody where, a digital AI scribe, but you got to be efficient with all that. And what happens is you can see more patients, you can get done on time, all that kind of stuff. So, and the other thing doctors need to do is learn to do their 5-day work week and a 4-day work week. And they can still get paid the same, but there's ways to become more efficient where you can get the same amount of volume done in 4 days. And they've shown studies that people are more fulfilled, they're more happy, they enjoy their life more, and actually they can end up becoming more profitable.
Yeah, especially if it's Monday through Thursday. Now you got every weekend, you know. So good. No, I love your touch. I love how you respond to things. I like the way you word things. Very relatable. And I think every doctor that's listening to this podcast today can really relate with what you're saying, and they should be able to pick out at least something to get started with. So how would they get in contact with you again? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's a tons of free resources. I have my podcast, which Kevin's going to be on. It's called the Limitless MD Podcast. It's about freedom, wealth, and human optimization. I have my book, The Perfect Week Formula for Doctors, which they can get for free on my website, which is either thelimitlessmd.com or my name, vikramraya.com, vikramraya.com. I have a newsletter that's amazing that I send out to all my subscribers that gives all these tips and strategies. They can get there. I'm also on YouTube and all the other social media platforms. And right now we're having a challenge, which is almost a 2-week free coaching where I'm going to be like getting people through their challenges. We're going to provide so much value on how to free up time, how to scale practices, how to get into real estate or other things. And that's available on my website as well if they want to get be part of that free challenge.
That is excellent. Any closing remarks? Anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, I want to speak directly to the physicians out there.
Yes, sir.
Guys, I believe in you. You guys are some of the smartest people on the planet, and you're at halftime. You've hit this mid-career wall. There's more to life. You're meant to do more. You're meant to really break through this plateau and achieve your most inner greatness. And I want you to embrace it and know that there's a way. And don't settle, and let's break out of the rat race. Let's break the golden handcuffs, and let's achieve what I call escape velocity and achieve your greatness.
This has been Vikram Raya. Thank you so much for your tips today and for joining me on this podcast. We're so glad to bring it to you. We try to keep these around 30 minutes so that we can get you back to what you're doing. But thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll have all your contact information here on the podcast too. Anyone that would like to get a hold of him, you can have this contact information that we'll make available to you below, including the book. I wish you great success in everything that you do moving forward. Until the next episode, I pray that you have a good day.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks. That's our podcast for today. And remember, if you're not working on your personal wealth, who is? Please share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, and make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Any questions about what you heard today, please send an email to kdsullivan@lpl.com. Physician Wealth Meds, wealth medicine for doctors.